Hey everybody, welcome to We Run on Reruns. I'm Amanda and I'm here with my brother Eric.
How you guys doing this week? We are here with our Stranger Things podcast, and we are getting close to the end here of season 4, where we have season 4, episode 7, chapter 7, The Massacre at Hawkins' lab.
Oh man, I'm so excited to talk about this episode. This is a fantastic episode. It's a long episode. It's pretty much like a movie here.
It is like a movie.
Wow.
It is
So
notably longer than the other episodes that we've done so far. So we may fracture this up a little bit differently than we have in the past to account for that and not keep you on this podcast for 4.5 hours. But we'll see what happens.
That's for those who might not want to be on this podcast for 4.5 hours. Why wouldn't you want to be?
I'm just saying.
Eric, come on now. So this is an epic episode. I mean, there is so much that we learn here. It could almost be a season finale. Honestly.
Oh, it could be.
It could leave us on a cliffhanger just with how it ends.
Yeah.
You know,
You could have ended season 4 right here, and everybody would have been thrilled about it.
Yeah, I mean, we would be thrilled knowing if there was going to be a season 5 for sure. We wouldn't want the series to end this way, but wow.
Oh, no.
Oh, man. This is good. So just as a reminder of where we left things off, we were with the Hawkins group where they reconnected with Eddie and they were searching for the new gate that they believed was at the bottom of Lover's Lake, as Jason was rallying the townspeople to help him hunt down the Hellfire Club. Meanwhile, the California group was getting Susie's assistance to pinpoint Elle's location. We also had Yuri as Joyce and Murray's prisoner, where they were hatching a new plan altogether to break Hopper out of prison. So we left things off with Steve diving down into Lover's Lake, busting through that gate, landing on the other side, and being viciously attacked by these winged bat crazy creatures. So yeah, that's where we left things off. And we jump right back into where that continues in this episode. But as Eric said, we're going to be kind of talking about each segment independently, and we're not going to start where the episode began. So Eric is going to kick things off for us by talking about what happens with Hopper and that part of this storyline.
Yeah, so I will actually start with one very short note on the California crew. Because the California group, Jonathan, Will, Mike, not involved. They're not here. Susie's not here. None of them are in this episode at all. But we do get, right towards the beginning of the episode, a very brief scene with this agent who's continuing to be tortured. And he is finally breaking. And he asks the general, that I'm assuming is the guy in charge, to promise not to kill her. And we never see him give up the information, but you know that he's about to, which means that storyline is kind of left with Jonathan, Will, and Mike on the way there because they've got the address from Susie. And now this guy is going to know the location from this agent who has broken through all the torture. I'll stop there real quick. Any notes on this? Because this was the only scene we have from this whole section.
Well, I just didn't realize, Eric, honestly, that he knew. Like, I really thought he was holding out because he didn't have the information. I didn't know that he would be privy to that. So that's really what stuck out to me there.
I also was curious about that. I know they obviously had a phone number, right? Because that was in the pen. But I didn't know they physically knew where the place was. And maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. But he's certainly about to give up some sort of information. But that's all we have from that. So now I will jump in. We'll start talking more about the Hopper side of this story, where Hopper is first back in his cell. He's there with Enzo. They're discussing their teenage kids and how little they care about them. Not that Hopper and Enzo care about the kids, but the kids seem to want to be disassociating from their parents. And Enzo is hoping that he can, leave a mark that his son will remember. And so Hopper's telling him, listen, you kill this monster. It doesn't matter that you turned on the Russians and tried to break me out. Monster Killer will be way high up on the list of legend, and you'll go down as a legend no matter what. So Murray and Joyce then are showing up outside the gate. Murray now with a shaved beard, looking a lot like Yuri, honestly. And he shows up to try to get the Americans in, and he does successfully. Murray then is trying to stay deep in character while they're inside this prison, but Joyce is having a really hard time with this. She's worried, she's panicking, and he's just trying to put the gag back on her so that she doesn't like blow his cover as he's trying to become Yuri. And so this leader of the prison comes in to meet Murray / Yuri, and Murray does a pretty darn good sell job to the point where there's this tense moment where the guard is like, I know about Yuri, and he's supposed to have a screw loose. And you have many screws loose. And they joke about it, and it's a fun little moment. And so they bring them outside to like reward them with their good behavior and show them this battle that's about to take place. And they are escorted out, and they see Hopper down in the pit waiting for the monster to come out. Hopper doesn't see them. He doesn't know, but they're down there watching him. And so Enzo is, they're being told the rules is what the Russian is telling them. And then as this monster is, starting to be released, they're being told, or Enzo is yelling, hold your ground. And meanwhile, Hopper has gone back and he's trying to light the flame on his spear because he's brought the alcohol. He has the rag wrapped around this axe and he's trying to get it lit. And of course, there's no lighter fluid in the lighter. And he's trying over and over. He's getting spark after spark after spark, but no flame to get it lit. And so meanwhile, Murray and Joyce take it upon themselves to kind of blow their own cover and hold the leader of the Russians that's up on the balcony with them at gunpoint, trying to lead him inside to get them to open the doors. And he's telling, this leader of the prison is telling the security guard, listen, if you open the doors, we're all dead because that monster is just going to come through and rip everybody apart. Mm-hmm. Murray and Joyce are able to take control of this situation while Hopper does get a flame on his axe, and they are fighting through this Demogorgon, which is ripping through everybody. And of course, as Hopper knew, he's got the flame. So he's able to hold it out and keep this Demogorgon at bay, while Joyce and Murray are able to gain control of the control room, and Joyce is just whacking buttons like it's whack-a-mole, trying to hope that one of these things will open a door somewhere. And they do eventually get this one door open that Enzo was trying to pry open with a pickaxe. When it comes down to it, Hopper and Enzo are able to slip inside this door with no other prisoners remaining as the Demogorgon has ripped through everybody. And Hopper is able to keep this Demogorgon at bay with his like slowly dying flame. And as the door's about to close, the Demogorgon rips the door back open, to which Hopper throws his axe like a spear right through the back of the Demogorgon's head, and it stumbles backwards, giving the door enough time to close. Doesn't kill it, but it gives it enough time to close and get out. And of course now they're outside the pit, but they're locked in another prison. And the next door opens, and on the other side, we have Joyce and Murray standing there waiting for Hopper. And Hopper embraces with Joyce, almost stunned that she's there, had no idea that they were there manipulating the doors. And they have this moment where I think he's mostly in shock. And Enzo is just kind of watching from the background, as is Murray. And that is the end of our Hopper story. So
Yeah.
I have Hopper and Enzo are out as my last note, but they're not really like all the way out. They're out of the
No,
pit,
right.
and that's all we got so far.
Yeah, they've made a significant hurdle. They've leapt through a significant hurdle, but they're definitely not out yet. This was such an emotional scene where Hopper sees Joyce. My notes are Hopper sees Joyce and I'm crying because like it was literally like it was so like what a relief, but he's also probably terrified at the same time because she's literally in the prison still now with him. So this is not great.
No,
But
they got a lot of work to
wow,
do still.
they have a lot of work to do, but they have made like significant progress. We'll see how this plays out. I mean, wow, that scene though with Hopper trying to get the lighter going and the
Uh
Demogorgon then leaping through the air because there was this one moment where the screen goes like black too.
yeah.
And it's like, wait, what happened? Because the devil, like, it almost made you think, were they going to just end that storyline there and we weren't going to see what happened until the next episode? No, they brought it back to see this. You see this Demogorgon just flying through the sky and
Right.
immediately taking out like 5 people in like 3 seconds.
I,
It was, oh,
the fight
wow.
scene.
Oh,
I mean, it's been. I mean, last episode we saw like the bats attacking Steve, right?
yeah.
I feel like it's been a few episodes since we've had like a pure fight scene in Stranger Things at this point. We've
Yes.
seen some of the stuff with Eleven and the training, but it doesn't quite compare. And we've seen
No.
obviously Vecna holding people, but these are not fights.
True.
You know, these are not
No.
like battles. And so to watch this with Hopper versus the Demogorgon was really a fun scene to watch. It's been a minute since we've seen something like that. And this Demogorgon was making short work of all the prisoners. I took note real quick as to say, again, this is the third episode in a row that we get a very reflective Hopper talking in his prison cell with Enzo. And again, this was about their kids and they were sharing this,
Yeah.
bond of that. But I feel like that was really another poignant moment that has really had me rally around Hopper over these last few episodes a lot more, because I would say through season 3, I was definitely starting to become more disenfranchised with Hopper as we went, as he was becoming more annoying than I felt he was heroic. And now I feel like we see him having something to fight for, being reflective of his own mistakes, taking some responsibility for things, and also now being the one who has the intel to actually fight this thing back. Because if they didn't have that flame, they were all dead.
Yeah, he's kind of that unlikely hero in a lot of those ways where like you don't quite you're not always on board with his tactics, but and you wouldn't always expect him to come through, but he tends to actually come through when he's needed. And yeah, he is controversial in a lot of
Well,
those ways, but I agree that like we see him kind of reflecting what he says something to Enzo along the lines of like, you know, I thought that we had defeated all of them because he obviously Enzo doesn't know his relationship with these monsters
right,
and what he's been through.
right.
He hasn't shared all that with them, so he's just like, yeah, my kid, like this could be a sign that this is my final move to take out this monster and really save my child from afar.
Yeah.
You know, like maybe this is how I'm supposed to go out. What that yeah, it's kind of like, all right, Hopper, but if there's one in this Russian prison, there might be more work to do outside of this prison. Too.
True, but if you're him
yeah.
and you're here and you're in the situation that he's in, like
Yeah.
this is what you can do. And so
That's right.
he has this symbolic opportunity to do something for Elle, which is really great. But I'm just glad to see him thinking more about that sort of stuff and how he can help Elle which is a lot similar to the Hopper we saw in season 1 and season 2, and not the season 3 Hopper who every single episode seemed upset that Joyce didn't meet him for a date at Enzo's.
Yeah.
So,
agreed.
Okay. So we're going to move on to 11, or do you have something else?
Yes. No. So now let's talk about 11's storyline in this episode, where we see her trying to crush a Coke can, but she's having all of these flashes back to that bloody massacre in the lab. So thinking about this episode title, that's really about what Elle's experience has been. So Dr. Owens is talking with Dr. Brenner saying, listen, you've had everything that you've asked for, and he's risked his life and his family's life because Dr. Brenner has assured him that this would work, that 11 was their only solution, and it's not working out. Well, Brenner is also getting discouraged, and he's talking to 11, telling her that she's regressing and things are going backwards. And he's really impressing upon her, like, you should not be hiding from the truth. And Elle is now convinced that she's the monster. And he's really having this conversation with her about how people really aren't that simple, right? Like, you're not just one thing or the other thing. There's complexity there. And he's trying to really explain this to her in ways that she'll understand, that she could relate to. And he's explaining that, listen, it's not this place that's the prison, but your mind can be one. And he really wants her to trust him and encourages her to go back into the tank. Like, he's explaining again, like, you don't have to stay here, but this is where you could actually become free. He wants to really help her become, like, free herself from her mind. And, this is where there's really almost conflicting, and we could talk about this more when I'm done with the summary, but it's like he's really there is more to Dr. Brenner too.
Oh, absolutely.
What he's saying here is, yeah. And so we're seeing Papa rather finding that tape from the lab from the day of the massacre too. And I'm kind of asking myself, has he not watched that before? That's kind of one question that I have that we will get back to. But back in Nina, we see 11 is then she's sedated and she's going deeper into her memories. So she's listened to Papa. She's going to try to really hone in on, that trauma from her past and understand it better here. So she is in a memory where she's talking to Papa. And this is after the kids had beat her up and bullied her in that scene. And she's saying she doesn't remember what happened. So he suggests maybe the others can help. So you see how in the past he had lined all the kids up in one of those rooms, and he's asking the kids, like, listen, I found 11 and she had a concussion. This did not happen without someone else doing this to her. So someone come clean, who did this? And the camera automatically goes to 2, which Papa probably already knows. Listen, 2 is the only one who could push someone else out of the circle. Obviously, this kid was involved, right? And he looks guilty as hell too. So he's kind of honing in on him. And, for what it's worth, a lot of the kids look guilty. A lot of them looked like they were sweating when he's asking this question. But 2 suggests, oh, she fell down. Wow, this kid is just pure bully. And he says, 2 is saying she's clumsy, she's stupid. This kid is so arrogant. And Papa is making him step forward, and he puts a collar on him. And this must be to, like, suppress their powers at this point.
That's how I took it too.
It's also, yeah. And Papa has this little, like, this little tool that he's using that's raising the amperage on this collar that's around 2's neck. And he's asking him directly, did you attack 11? But he continues to lie and say he didn't. He falls to the ground, and Papa's continuing to torture him. It was a pretty brutal scene. He's not coming clean on what happened there, though. then in this memory still, we're seeing the other kids are staring 11 down in the rainbow room. They are all just looking at her, and she is just feeling very isolated from the group. She really doesn't have any friends here. And Henry, though, is approaching her, and we see them playing chess together. He's telling her he has something he wants to talk with her about, but she should not be reacting to anything that he's about to say because he knows, obviously, they have cameras on them. And he's telling her about how number two is in the infirmary and he's going to try to kill her when he gets out. And guess what? Papa is actually behind all of this. And Papa is orchestrating this whole thing. Even though he's acting like he wants to protect her, he really wants to kill her because she frightens him. And Henry is saying he wants to try to help her escape today, but they are all being watched, so they have to be careful. And he believes her how what her experience has been throughout um her life in the rainbow room, but he also wants to try to free her from this. And he gives her this key card under the table that obviously is to unlock a lot of these doors. So we see 11 back in the rainbow room where she has her eye on the clock because clearly this is where their plan is going to unfold here that she's made with Henry. And she talks to one of the attendants about how she's not feeling really well. She's feeling dizzy. The light is hurting her head. So as this attendant is talking with one of the nurses about 11, the nurse is like, "What kid are you talking about? There's no one there." Because while his back was turned, she took a run for it, is using that key card to escape through one of the doors and down a stairwell. And that's where she's meeting Henry. It's almost in this like boiler room. And he is showing her this little hatch where she can crawl through to escape into the woods. And we know, if we think back to episode 1, this is where she ended up escaping through and where that piece of her hospital gown had been torn off. So this is all leading up to that scene. But Henry is saying to 11 he can't go with her because this hatch isn't big enough for him. And he's showing her how he also can't leave because he has this chip in his neck and it's a tracker and it's also weakening him. He calls it soteria. And 11 is offering to remove it so he can go with her. This is all one big manipulation, and it is just, "Oh, yeah, I can't go with you, kid. You're gonna have to be out there all on your own." Because remember, 11 is just a tiny child at this point. Like, she doesn't want to be alone in the woods in this big world she has no understanding of. So this is bad. So he's telling her, she can help him. So we see then in this next scene with the two of them, he's reminding her that she won't hurt him, to just get it over with. So she's using her powers and she's pulling that implant right out of his neck. And this is really, as we know, as viewers, this is where it all began. This is where things went off the rails, because then there are guards, because as they're coming up out of the no, hold on, let me go back there, because right after she takes out the implant, we see flashlights coming into that room, because guards are then figuring out that they're in the boiler room, so they make a run for it and they're cornered by these guards. And Henry is like, "Oh, no problems now. I could just take them out." So he immediately is just using his powers, knocking down these guards, knocking them against the wall. He snaps one of the other guards' necks in that move that we've seen 11 use before, where she kind of twists her neck to one end and it just snaps the guard's neck. And 11 is watching all this like, oh man, what have I gotten myself into here? This seems pretty unchained. So at this point, Henry takes her into this side storage room and he's showing her his wrist where it says 001. So this is where we learn that Henry, this friendly orderly who's been helping 11, well, he's actually the origin child
There you
of
go.
this whole laboratory experiment. So he's telling her, wait for me here. I'm going to go take care of some stuff. Well, 11 starts hearing some alarms going off in the distance, and so she decides to go explore and figuring out what's going on. She's hearing screaming in the distance, and there is a guard's walkie-talkie on the ground where she's also overhearing a lot of what's going on. She turns a corner and sees Papa is knocked out and there is blood everywhere. She gets into the rainbow room. And that's where she's seeing Henry torturing number 2 against a wall. Number 2's eyes are completely white, and he finally kills him. And that's when he turns and sees 11 just standing there in the room, and she's trying to leave, but he locks the doors. And he's asking, why are you crying for these people? We don't need them. And they were not there for us. Now he wants to be a team with 11 and just continue on this vengeful path. But that is really not what 11's all about here. So Eric, this
Yeah.
was a lot. This was
This is a lot.
And there's more to the Henry storyline, but it all converges with the rest, with what we see happening with the Hawkins kids and what we see happening with Dustin.
Yeah.
So we're going to tie back to that at the end of this episode. But up until this point,
trying to
Eric,
break
my
these,
goodness.
trying to break all these into their own individual segments, but there is definitely a blended stretch here at the end, which Henry will be a part of. Okay. I was just jotting things down as we were going through that. First thing, that scene where Henry like obliterates the guards in the hallway. I mean, it was almost, to me, shot for shot what Elle did in the school with the boys.
Yes.
Like when the guards are on both sides and she's like, boom, against the wall, boom, snap neck. Like, it's like she learned it from him. Like she saw this happen and then did it herself when it was needed. Of course, we saw that seasons ago and this now. So, but as far as the timeline is concerned, it would be the opposite order.
Yeah, and that would have happened like pretty much right after she saw Henry doing that. So it's like, hey, I just learned this from someone that I've seen this happen.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you mentioned, is there more to Brenner? And I wrote down also like Owens is mad at Brenner and Brenner is kind of like in this weird spot. So did you want to elaborate on that at all?
Well, it's like there is such a Brenner points out to 11 that it's not so simple, that people are complicated. And I think in a lot of ways he's talking about himself here because it's like he's trying to do something good, I think.
Yeah.
But it's gone off the rails a bit. I think he's trying to correct things. He's trying to correct things in a way that makes sense to him. But sometimes things don't always work out as intended either, but it is all about the intention a lot of times. And I am feeling like he has had good intentions with what he's trying to do here. I think that, as often with, I guess he's kind of a mad scientist in a way, it's sort of like, so with this, his science has also always been his priority. So that may have also, created issues, but to say the least.
Well,
but I think he is at this point really trying to make things work out in 11's favor. He's trying to look out for her in a way that as we see here, Henry is the one who has the malicious intent. He is not
I
looking out for
No,
her.
he's
He's
not.
looking out for himself.
I would
Number one,
I would
as he's called.
imagine that Dr. Brenner's relationship with Eleven is similar to Dr. Frankenstein and Frankenstein's monster,
Right.
right?
Right.
Where cares desperately that that the monster is okay, is desperately is taken care of, and that Eleven is okay, and he wants her to be okay, but at the same time, it's still a science experiment that he wants to see successful. And
Mhm.
so we have this whole idea of him caring for her, but also is kind of pushed back with, well, how far can I push the science? And when it comes
Mhm.
down to it,
Yeah.
I do think the science is his more pressing interest.
Y- yes.
But I will say
Yes.
this whole season has painted Papa in a slightly different light. I think it at
Mhm.
least gives viewers the opportunity to see him not so negatively. Because up until this point, he was only a negative character. There were no positives
Yes.
to Papa. He was controlling, and it was all manipulated. And we had Eleven's side of the story, but we didn't have Eleven's perspective going back in, because now Eleven is choosing to go back in. And when he's saying things like, this place is not a prison, like he's saying, if you want to leave, you can go. But she knows at this point that her best outcome is being successful here, because we've seen her at the school. That's not a successful outcome for her. She doesn't know
No.
how to assimilate into society. She knows how to work with people who care about her, but that's about it. Like, she can't just go
And
off and like get a job and live a normal life like every other person at this point. Like, she is in a different boat.
so, yeah, there are a few things with that. It's like we now understand why we viewed Papa, because we were viewing Papa
Through her eyes.
through Eleven's
Yeah.
eyes, and she has been manipulated by Henry
Yep.
to believe that, hey, he actually wants to kill her. And I don't know, it's like 11, she may not believe that fully, because obviously Henry, she doesn't trust him either, because she banishes him. Well,
No.
we're not there yet,
Yeah.
but
Henry
she ends up going toe to toe with him, and
Henry
she
has
knows that he
provided
is not trustworthy.
Henry has
Yeah.
provided enough doubt about Papa. But at the
Yeah.
same time, when it comes down to it, he erased all good he did in this by essentially turning on Eleven through this process where she thought they were together, and all of a sudden he goes back and just wipes everybody out. Like, that wasn't what she wanted to see
Yeah.
happen either. She just wanted to escape. Um
And while Papa is telling her that she's not a prisoner, it's one of those things though where it's like, you're not a prisoner, you can leave, but there's nothing for you out
well,
there.
but that is
It's
not
kind of
wrong.
it's really, but there is though. It's just another challenge. It would be another hurdle for her to get through, and the truth is that right now the world is being attacked by all of these other elements and monsters that she has the ability to stop. And so,
And she
the
is the
argument could
only
also,
one with that ability.
and she, because of what Papa has done to her, uh she's the one who also has almost put all of this in motion. She was a child, did not mean to. So when we talk about intentions, it's kind of like she did not intend to open up this gate
No.
and create this chaos, but this is where we are at because of how things really started with Henry and being 001. He is the origin of all of this. And yeah, it's kind of cool. I think that just the dimensions of these characters it's great. So it's not just very like, hey, this guy's bad, this guy's good,
Yeah.
like this person like through and through is just evil. There's more, you get a lot more character development with Dr. Brenner, with all of them. And so you
Well-
kind of even number one, you see things in a different perspective here. You could make the argument that you have more sympathy for him in certain aspects of this episode as well.
I think it's been written in a way that there is sympathy to be had for all of these characters.
Mhm.
Now, you did mention you wondered if he had watched the tape before while you were going through that. Is that something you wanted to touch on?
Well, so he went in and he's like pulling the VHS tape, and I'm thinking, did he not watch what actually went down?
No,
that
I
day?
don't
Like,
think that's true. I think
okay.
he was just
Okay.
So remember, Dr. Owens was mad that this was going
Right.
nowhere, and she was now starting to regress. And I think Dr. Brenner was sitting there staring at the tape, knowing what was on this tape, and thinking to himself, is it time that I show her this? And
show it to 11.
yeah, like,
right.
is
okay.
this the time
Yeah.
to show it to her? And I think he
Okay.
chose to because he knows that if he doesn't show her something like this, she is thinking that she is a monster and that she did all these things. And by showing it to her, she can remember that she's not. She's not
you
the
think
one.
he showed it to her? Because they didn't show that.
What? It's on
You
the tape.
think he showed her the tape?
That's the memory that she's going through.
He didn't. No, that was part of our current timeline where
I
he
know.
grabbed.
He's putting those tapes in so that she can relive the memories. That's how that's working. That's how she's getting.
He's putting the tape in, and that's how she's tapping.
That's how
into
she's
it.
tapping into these things.
Oh, I was not following that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think so he decided, like, that's why when she is laying down in the water, all
Yes.
these screens are above her.
Okay.
Like, I think that's what his decision
I was
point
not following that part. Okay, that makes sense. So it's like hearing certain conversations, hearing the noises of that from that recording is then putting her back in that moment. Sorry, guys,
Yeah,
if that was obvious to everyone else, totally, I totally missed that.
I think that's how that was being channeled.
Oh, okay then.
No, I don't know
makes a lot more sense.
Like, I don't know exactly how that functions, but that to me is you get the tape,
that
you put her in the
make
tub,
sense.
you play the tape, she goes into that memory.
Spark certain memories. Gotcha. Okay.
Okay, the last one thing I wanted to ask you, because I always thought that the thing that she pulled out of one's neck was a tracker, which is what he said it was.
It was, yes.
Now,
yes.
To that, I want to question, because now that we've seen this collar in play, is this more a power suppressor and not a tracker?
Well, he said it was both.
Who said it was both?
No, Henry.
Oh, okay.
He said it's a tracker and it weakens me.
Okay. He did say that. Yes. All right.
Yes, because that was the whole thing. It was like his handcuffs. Because once she took that off, he was freed. She freed him.
It was like a permanent collar on him. Is what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what I was thinking. Like, we never saw him be able to do anything with his powers until that thing was gone. And then he went.
11 set.
Yeah.
Yes, 11 set him free. And that's why it was like, well, this is really where that story begins.
There you go.
Because that's where he then immediately took out the guards. And Papa put that in because he knew he couldn't trust him.
Okay.
And so
So now we're going to touch on the upside down section of this. And again,
so
we're shortening the upside down and then the right side upside of this and the 11 side, because then it all comes together at the end. So we will put it all back together as we get closer.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Because all the stories converge, and so that's where we will touch on the conclusion where all the stories are sort of happening at once. But to kick things off with this episode, this is how things start here too. We're right back with Steve being attacked by those evil winged creatures in the Upside Down. And immediately, we then see Nancy, Robin, and Eddie right there with him, and they are attacking them to get them off of Steve. And they eventually are able to kill a few and scare off the rest. And Robin is immediately paranoid about rabies. And she
Of
says it's
course.
one of her biggest fears. And she wants Steve to see a doctor. And I'm like, Robin, really? A doctor right now? I mean, that would be great, but this is not where we're going to find it. I think even if we found a hospital in the Upside Down, there's not going to be any doctors there. Girl, it's not going to happen. So we then see more bats appearing in the distance, and then they are flying down toward where that gate was that they crossed through. Through that, there you just see this like red portal in the ground, but then they all take off again. No, I'm sorry. And then the kids all take off toward the woods. They see the tree line and they're like, let's go that way, because they know this is just a reflection of their, of the real world. And so they're going to try to find a place to hide and be more secure. And that's where in the episode we get the credits roll. But to join back up with the group, we see they have found Skull Rock in the Upside Down, and they're hiding under it from the bats. And Nancy realizes Steve is in a ton of pain. He's losing blood. So she's trying to stop the pain, puts pressure on it with one of her sweaters. And they kind of have a little moment there. We also see Eddie up on the rock. He's climbed up to the top of Skull Rock and he's looking out into the distance to try to figure out kind of what their next move is. We also see Nancy warning him about the vines because they're telling him about the hive mind and that Vecna controls it all, and anything that they touch could also piss off Vecna. So they don't want to be careful of that. So Robin is then suggesting that they go to the police station to try to get more weapons. And Nancy's like, actually, guys, I have some weapons back at home. And this is kind of a funny moment where they're like, girl, you have guns? Okay, did not expect that, Nancy Wheeler. But they, there's a brief moment where there's also this crazy earthquake where things start to fall down. You hear like monsters screaming in the distance and just a lot of groaning sounds. They're like, yeah, you know what? Let's still take a run for it. Let's go find those guns at Nancy's house. So they are on the move. In the woods, we also have this great, this moment between Steve and Eddie where Eddie is thanking Steve for saving him. Because he was really, I'm sorry, Steve is thanking Eddie for saving him, rather, when they get into the Upside Down, because Eddie was like tearing the bats off of him and like ripping them apart and beating them with anything that he could find. And Eddie is saying like, listen, it was very Ozzy Osbourne of you for taking a bite out of that one bat too, because he kind of ripped its head off. And Steve does not get this reference at all, which was hilarious and just says a lot about the different groups that they hang out in. But yeah, they just had this moment where they didn't think that they would be friends, but hey, maybe things aren't always as they seem, as they appear on surface level, and they kind of have a little connection there. But Eddie also is sharing about how he knows that Dustin worshipped Steve and he hated it because he kind of thought he was a jerk, and he's been sort of jealous of their friendship. And he said that he really only went into the water after him because he admits the ladies jumped in first, and that Nancy Wheeler, she must be really in love with you, because it did not take her even a second to make that decision. She was right in the water after him. So that was just a really sweet scene there as well, where I think Steve is kind of coming to terms with that a little bit, maybe. But
I'll drop this in there while you're thinking. Eddie says, it was the most unambiguous sign of true love that these cynical eyes have ever seen. which is, again, Eddie's just dropping quotes, like such great lines from Eddie as he's going through this. But that was a very cool moment for him. And this whole walkthrough with both Eddie and Steve and Nancy being mentioned throughout this is a great moment. And I will touch more on it later, but I wanted to put that quote in there for you.
So everything starts shaking. Again, there's another one of these earthquakes. So seriously, something is unstable in this part of the Upside Down. We have Nancy running out into the distance, and that's where they see the Wheeler house. And they're running toward it, and Steve and the rest of them they make it to the Wheeler house, and they quickly realize that in Nancy's room, this is in the past. This is not the current bedroom. Her guns are not there. She found one of her journals, and Nancy journals almost every single day. And she's realizing this entry is from the day that Will went missing, from the day that the gate opened up, and they're in the past. And Steve is just walking around downstairs also trying to reach Dustin because he could hear Dustin, but he can't see him, obviously. And so they're remembering, oh, how did Will get in touch with Joyce when he was in the Upside Down? He used the lights. So they're moving over to one of the chandeliers and kind of waving their hands around it. And we see all these sparkles as kind of this glitter around it. And so they're realizing this must be the connection to the real world. And so Nancy is asking if any of them know Morse code, and Eddie is like, does SOS count? Is that good? It's great. It's like, Eddie, yes it does.
Come
and
to the
thank
rescue
God
again.
that you know that. Yes, because without Eddie, they just would have been lost here. I mean, they could have, I guess, made some flashing, but yeah, this is a language that Dustin is gonna understand.
There you go. Well, let me go back to the beginning of this stretch real quick and just say this is the second fight scene we have. It's actually the first one, but there's two in this episode, like two crazy fight scenes, and one leads off the episode. This whole encounter with Nancy and Robin and Eddie and Steve and the bats is really quite something. And I have a question on mine that says, is Eddie good at sports? Because he's swinging a boat oar like a baseball bat, no problem.
Well, he's strong. I don't think he's an athlete like with group sports. I don't think he participates.
No, he definitely doesn't participate.
The team sports in school, but that does not mean that he's not athletic. And I agree, he is. He's definitely holding his own.
He sure is.
And he is ready for the battle. He has played enough of these out in his mind in Dungeons and Dragons, and now he is living it in real life.
Well, so, and this kind of ties into that conversation through the woods, because I feel like the most critical pieces of this section of the story are that conversation that Eddie has with Steve, where it's very obvious to us through the whole season that Steve is jealous of Eddie. But now, here they are, walking through the Upside Down together. Dustin is not with them, and Eddie is admitting that he's jealous of Steve because Dustin worships Steve, and Eddie is talking about how Steve's whole upbringing, there's no way this guy isn't a douche, is his quote. And in fact, he's kind of a nice guy. And it's one of those things that I feel like is so telling in high school. Like, everybody compartmentalizes themselves into their group, and then everybody judges everybody else from the other groups to be, and this is not one person or the other, it's all high school age
Some
students.
People never stop doing that.
You're not wrong. Some people never stop doing that. But I do think a lot of people at some point recognize, hey, this person is just a person too. And like, we can be friends. Because I've seen lots of people kind of cross over all of a sudden, between groups. Much like you have this moment with Eddie and Steve. Two people who would never run in the same circles. They would not talk to each other in high school. And yet here they are, friends. Like, awesome.
Well, and I think it's the craziness of this moment that is making them feel a bit more vulnerable than they normally would, and probably tending to open up in a way that because this might be it, right? Like,
Right?
a lot of these kids are probably thinking, well, I guess we're gonna die together, because I mean that's how I would be feeling if I was stuck in an alternate dimension fighting off demon bats. I
Well,
mean, Steve was about to die there, if they hadn't been there to save him. I mean, Eddie literally just saved Steve's life. So when you're having that kind of, I guess, that trauma bond, right, together, it's like that's going to bring people closer in a way that you normally would not have been. Eddie also knows that, what he went through with Chrissy's death. Hey, these kids actually not only believe me, but have seen it themselves, understand it. I mean, they're gonna now be bonded for life, whether they like it or not,
Yeah.
And so I think that type of thing, you shed all the other ridiculous walls that you've built up on for things that, just narrowly, I guess, your identifiers, right?
Yeah.
Like things that we only identify with this one group for this one quality. We're more than that, right? It almost goes back to what Papa was talking about with 11, where people aren't so simple, we're complex. So
Absolutely.
I feel like that's kind of the theme of this episode.
I also enjoyed the scene here with Robin and Eddie basically being explained what the upside down was. It's like, now that you're here, let me explain the rules and guidelines of this land. Like, everything is a hive mind, so if you touch anything, everything else knows that it's here. And it's like the shot, because you kind of forget Robin really hasn't dealt with any of this. She saw the mall and she saw the mind flare there and all of the stuff that went on, but she has not really dealt with the upside down, actually going
she
there.
She hasn't been in it.
Or interacting much with it other than that. So this is a very different experience for her. It's different for Eddie, obviously. This is very different. And it is very interesting. But I'll roll on. Do you have anything else you want to add from this section?
No, I mean, just there was a lot of moments between Nancy and Steve. I feel like they're really pushing that part of the storyline. Yeah. And also I just thought it was very interesting that they were talking about how they're stuck in the past on the day that Will vanished. So that's just a really cool piece of information that we did not know, that it's like, oh, this is all the upside down, a reflection of Hawkins, but this was the origin. It's stuck in that day.
Yeah, I was going to say, time stands still. There is no time in the upside down. It is that day. It is the day that it was created, and that's it. Oh, and that, I'm so glad I phrased it that way. Question. Mm-hmm. We've now seen, you know what? I'll save it.
All right.
Because we haven't actually got to the thing yet. We got right up to it, but not really to it yet. So I'll save it.
All right. Don't forget the question.
I will not forget the question.
Okay.
I'm writing it down. We've now followed all of the gang through the upside down. Let's go to the right side up, right? We're going to talk about the group that has been left on top in the actual Hawkins, present day Hawkins. And we are starting off with Max, Dustin, and Lucas at the Wheeler's house being questioned by the police, and seemingly all the parents. The Wheelers are there, Lucas's parents are there, Dustin's parents are there. There's just a whole flood of people in this living room firing off questions about what they were doing, why they were there, and Dustin is trying to like give the idea that they were taking a little swim, you know? And you know, side note, I've seen the bloopers on that, and they can't keep it straight at all when he says, just take a little swim. Like, it's too much. Anyway, we move. And so the idea is then Ted Wheeler suggests maybe they all need to spend a night in prison, and that gets all the parents
Ted.
at each other's throats because, of course, his kids are not present. And so they get to the point where the chief stands up and yells and says, "Okay, we're gonna do this one at a time, and they're gonna start with you, which is Max." Poor choice, by the way. And then they decide, okay, so they're going to have that conversation. The rest of them are all just get free to mill around the house, apparently. And so the parents are all talking, and Dustin and Lucas and Erica are now having a conversation because Erica knows that they are lying to the cops. She's like, you guys are just straight out liars. What is happening here? And so she says, listen, tell me what's going on here, or I'm going to tell Dustin what's under your bed, Lucas. And he is like, okay, here's all the things. And he just spills it immediately. And Dustin's like, what's under his bed?
Dude, what's your problem?
Yeah, what's going on,
Friends
man?
moment. This reminds me of like, dude, what's wrong with you? What'd you have?
What'd you have from Friends? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. We also had a little moment here where they were like, I think this was just before that, where Lucas is like, they wouldn't go through the gate without us, right? And I'm like, no, without a plan? No, they would never do that. Okay. And which then cuts over to the other side. But then we have this, okay, let's talk about this. How did the gate open? Why is Vecna killing people? How does the Mind Flayer figure into this? And they're starting to pose, basically out loud, the big questions that the audience genuinely has. Like, why would Vecna do all this? Who is we know what the Mind Flayer is, but how does he factor into this? And so Dustin starts theorizing that Vecna is the 5-star general of the Mind Flayer, and the Demogorgons are Vecna's foot soldiers. So the Demogorgons are just the little peon soldiers. Vecna is the general who has to listen to the Mind Flayer, and that is the theory that Dustin lays out. And as they're going through all of this, that's when they start seeing, as you've talked about, Eddie's SOS through the chandelier and the lights. And so Dustin looks over and he sees the SOS through the lights and he spells it out, SOS. And he goes, I overestimated them.
Yes, you did.
They did go through that gate, didn't they? And so here we are with this whole thing. But I do find this above ground section of the story very interesting because Dustin kind of lays out for everybody, not just the characters, but the audience, what the roles of these things are. And I feel like even through season 5, people were still like, well, what is this person? How is this connected? What? He's laid it all out right here.
Yes. I love that. It was helpful to kind of lay out, I think, when people are like, well, there's the Mind Flayer, there's Vecna, there's all these monsters, like, how are they all connected? And so the way that he laid that out was cool.
But, on a rewatch, right? Like, I mean, you and I have watched season 5. We haven't talked about anything in season 5, but but I felt like this was a running theme. People were asking, like, how are these things all connected? Dustin in season 4 has laid it all out on the table right here.
I don't know if it's because maybe they just needed to restate it again. There's that thing that you hear about how shows and movies are made now where they have to keep restating the obvious over and over because everyone is looking down at their
Yeah,
phones and like not paying attention to
I
things.
have
I'm
seen
like,
this.
so honestly, Eric, I feel like that could be a part of it. There's also a large, a gap in time between when the series come out. If you don't rewatch it all again, this is why, honestly, this is helpful for me too. I'm like, oh yeah, like that's how he explained it because it's a great point. Like they don't restate that.
No, then
And
as far as I can remember, this is the only like moment where literally Dustin clearly lays it all out as a hypothesis
yeah,
for Lucas.
yes,
But really,
right,
it's for the audience. It's like
yeah,
here's what
100%,
this is. We're telling
yeah.
you here's how it's connected. And yet I
Well,
still feel like we were all the way to like the last episode and people were like, how is it all connected?
yes, right. Although I don't know, I felt like by the time, I mean, we'll get into it more next season, but it's like I feel like by the time like it was very obvious,
I
you saw
feel like
Vecna
that was the
literally
case,
like
right? Yeah,
inside a
yeah,
mind flayer home, like that's where he
yeah.
lived. It was kind of like, yeah. So it seemed very obvious to me, but yeah, I appreciated also how he described the psychic connection that Vecna is making with his victims is actually ripping through the
Mm,
fabric of time and space.
true.
And that is what's making these gates too. We hadn't really had a good understanding of how those portals were made. Like, why is there one at the bottom of Lover's Lake? Oh, that's because that's where Patrick died. And
Right.
so if there's a gate there, then they're now theorizing there's probably a gate where all of their victims have been. So they're now thinking of where Chrissy died, where Fred died. Like, let's look back in those locations, to those locations. So, I thought it was kind of funny when the lights were flashing like crazy in the kitchen, and somehow Erica is like the only one that notices. I'm like, I don't know if Dustin was just like so in
Yeah,
his
I
mind,
feel
like
like
thinking about all these different things. And I'm
that's
like,
it.
Dustin, guys, the lights. Like,
I feel like Dustin and Lucas were like in the zone trying to like come
yes.
up with all the
I,
answers. Max is
yeah.
being questioned, and Eric is the only one who's like only half listening to Dustin and realizing, hey, something else is going on over here, guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yep.
well, this will kind of tie us in at this point, though, to the end here as we're talking about like where are these gates created? This whole end
Yeah.
storyline where we start to connect the Upside Down to present day Hawkins to Henry. So I'll let you
Yeah.
run with this.
Yeah, because this is where really the stories all converge because we have Dustin, Lucas, and Erica. They're taking little Holly's light bright away from her and they bring it upstairs and Nancy starts communicating with them through the light bright, which is very cool. I love this moment. And she's drawing the word stuck out first on this light
No,
bright.
she drew
And
the word high first.
oh, yeah. Thank you. Yes. She just says hello. She says hi. And it's this very exciting moment because it's like, oh my God, we are
Like it's
communicating
worked.
with people in another dimension. It's working. Yes. So then she spells out stuck. So they are stuck. And also the word guarded because they're like letting them know we can't just get out
But
through that other
yeah,
portal.
that's why
It's
they
being
can't go
guarded.
back. And
Right.
that's the problem.
Right, because those bats had they were just swarming around that gate. There was no way they were getting back through there. So Dustin in this scene is just screaming that there is about how there's a gate at every murder site. And I'm thinking to myself, how are the cops not hearing Dustin screaming about a murder site and the gates? But here we are. So
Listen, we've learned that the
Steve
parents in this, the adults in this whole thing are not necessarily on the same page, right?
even
They
the
have
cops, my God.
listen, the cops minus Hopper are average
Oh.
at best.
So we have Steve and Eddie pointing out how Dustin really needs to get his ego in check and his tone could use some work. And I appreciated that. It's like, hey, Dustin's kind of flipping out, and they're like, Dustin, calm down.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, we also have Robin asking Nancy if they still have the bikes there from a few years ago. Because even though they're back in time, certain things that they knew of were still around. So yes, they do. And they know that Eddie's trailer is about 7 miles away from where they are. So they're hopping on those bikes and they're going to take off. So as the cops are going upstairs to find where the kids are, because I guess, I don't know if they heard the screaming or just decided, hey, we should probably poke around because they were done interviewing Max.
That's what it was. They were done with Max.
He was very mean to them.
Max was mean to them and not giving anything up. And
I wish we had been a fly on the wall for even a moment of that interview. That would have been
something
great.
tells me there's a deleted scene about that, but this episode was running long enough as it was. You didn't need to see Max bullying a police officer.
Oh,
but I know how
man,
it went down.
So great.
She wasn't ever given anything up there.
Yeah, so the cop's reaction was great. And as they're riding off, we have Erica stabbing one of the cop's tires and blowing it out. So it's like, yep, they can't get away. This is a badass move. So, I guess, was the cop car blocking in the rest of the cars? Is that what it was? So no one else had a car? Okay.
I assume as much because all the adults run out into the street and they're like,
and
hey, you get back here! And they're just driving off, rolling on, which is really cool because you get this moment with the camera work where they're showing the kids biking in the upside down, and then it rotates around, and you get the other kids biking in Hawkins, and they're all heading over to Eddie's, which is very cool.
Yes, and we see the bats also flying in the upside down, and you have this flash of a moment where you see Vecna's face. So it's like they're alerting Vecna to where these kids are. So he is well aware. Then you see Steve and his gang riding around and seeing the bats in the distance as well. But they are making it to Eddie's trailer, and they're seeing the ceiling with that red portal. But something is poking through the portal, and it's Dustin. And you see they're busting through it on their end, busting through what is the ceiling on their side, and coming down through the ceiling in the upside down. So Dustin theorizes, hey,
it's so interesting to see the camera work too, because both sides you're looking through the portal and they are on the other side but looking up at you, so everybody's looking up at the portal because it's upside down from each other. It's so weird.
It is very weird, and Dustin has this theory, is like, well, if I made this, he tied up a bunch of sheets with knots in it, as you would to escape out of a window or something, right? So he is then throwing it up into the ceiling, which then ends up dropping into the upside down so they can climb up it, but he's able to let go and the tension holds.
Okay.
So it's very cool.
He's like, if my physics are right, and it does, it just sits there, just stuck between them. I'm going to need someone to explain the physics on that. I still don't fully get how that happens.
Well, it's the gravity from both sides. The gravity from
both sides is pulling the thing the opposite direction, so it just holds.
That's right, because once Nancy goes first, and Robin goes first, and once Robin climbs out of the upside down, where she's having to use pull up her own body weight as she's climbing the rope from her side, but once she gets through the portal,
just drops like a rock.
Gravity takes over on that end, and she drops like a rock on the other side.
As long as you can get it through the portal, the gravity is trying to pull it down on both sides, and therefore it's just stuck there. Interesting.
That's right.
Okay, I like that.
So after Robin goes, Eddie is then kind of looking around, and he realizes, oh, Nancy and Steve, they're going to hang out together here. I'm going to go next. Yeah. So he then climbs up the rope, and he's able to get through. But then Nancy, she's imagining that she's climbing up this rope and going next. And we then see this clip, though, of instead of falling onto this mattress that they had put on the other end, so they didn't just fall into the floor when they hit the real world.
Don't worry about the stains.
We just
That's what Eddie said.
we just oh, did he?
Yeah, he's
oh
like,
God,
don't worry about those stains on the mattress. It's
oh my God.
nothing.
That's great. Oh, Eddie. But we see then Nancy just falling in blackness, and you don't know where she is or what's going on, but then she lands hard in this pool that we recognize, but she's still in the upside down, and this is the pool where Barb had died. So you just see it's covered in all of those vines, and then you have this moment in the upside down where Nancy's body actually is, where she's with Steve still this entire time, and she's in one of those trances, just like Max has been, and she's under Vecna's control. Vecna has her. So she thinks in her mind that she's in this pool, and she looks over and sees Barb's body just completely, well, it's just, well, she's dead, obviously. It's her corpse. And
yes.
yeah, and she is just her eyes are white, like it's just whatever is remaining, but she can tell it was Barb, and she's hearing Vecna's voice, and we see this pool is just starting to get filled up with what I think is blood, but everything is black here, so it's just this black ooze that is coming down through the pool's like little vents, and Steve cannot wake Nancy up. So Nancy is trying to climb out of this pool. You have flashes of what happened to Barb where she was trying to pull herself out. And Vecna is just saying, well, I remember everyone I killed, don't you? You know, like, because he tries to hold on to everyone's shame and trauma and guilt. So that is what he's trying to hold on to Nancy in this moment. And she then hears the clock as she's pulled. She climbs herself out of this pool, and then she finds herself then on top of that staircase that was in Vecna's home. So this is that same staircase that Max had found herself on. You see the clock that's like broken off, floating in the distance, and this is the Creel house. And Vecna is saying that she was so close to the truth, but this is where he has her now, and she sees Fred tied up, and she sees then this vision of when the Creels moved in to their home. And that's when everything ties back in to Eleven's experience as well, because we're hearing Henry's voice, who we know is 001, who is also the little boy Henry in the Creel house. So he is, you know, as we met Victor Creel, who was in the prison, who stabbed his own eyes out. Well, this is Henry. So Henry, we are learning, the orderly at the hospital, 001, that's that kid. So we're focusing in on the young boy who's telling this story, and he's talking about, so we see him also telling 11 this story as well, and how he knew that there was always something wrong with him as a young boy, and his experience in the Rainbow Room as well is all kind of tying together here. But we first hear him talking about his life in this home, and his parents thought a fresh start would cure him, and he played with the Black Widow spiders in the vent, and he related to the spiders a lot more than how he could relate to people. He felt like humanity and the constructs of reality were holding him back. And he's looking at the clock, and that's why he is obsessed with clocks, because the days just keep passing by, the hours, the minutes, the seconds, it's all just controlling us. But we don't have to be.
I really like the idea that he talks about how time is just an invention of man, and
yes,
days and weeks and years, this is all just stuff that we created that does not have to exist at all. Like, you can just have the sun go up and down. Like, that's a thing.
Yeah.
But we've created this whole construct of time and, years and all of that. And so he's saying that the people, like the idea of man is, what was it? Like, grow up,
Yep. Get a
get a
job.
job, reproduce, die.
Mhm.
Something like
Yes.
that.
Yep.
That was basically what man's purpose was, and he did not want to adhere to that construct.
That's right. And I mean, some of that is true.
I think
Right?
a lot of
It's
that is
like,
true. He's not saying
yeah,
anything
it's, I
wrong.
mean, that is part of life. And right, if you're, and I think that there is a certain amount of, this is where maybe some of the sympathy can come in toward Henry, because I think a lot of people hear that and it's like, yeah, I get that. I get what he's trying to say on a certain level, right?
Yeah, I don't
Do we
know
all
that
then do what
his.
Henry does and go off the
Well,
rails
right.
and react the way that he did? Yeah, this is psychosis at this point.
There's a difference
So,
between having good information and having a good, unique thought process on how things are, and then acting like a mass murderer. Like, you can think
right,
that one
because it's
thing
one
and then
thing.
not kill everybody in the Rainbow Room still.
So, right, it is one thing to not want to abide by all the constructs that we have created for ourselves in your day to day. You can live your life like that as much as you want. When you start murdering other people to get to that point,
Yeah.
I think we've gone off the rails here. So he then is deciding he not only wants to abide by those rules, he doesn't want anyone in the world to abide by those rules. And he wants to be the god of everyone at this point,
Well, it's
right?
do you remember, have you watched any of the Star Wars like movies? Like the first ones?
Star Wars.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so like
Yes.
in the third episode of Star Wars, there's this
Yep.
moment towards the end where Anakin Skywalker walks in and like kills the entire room of Jedis, of young
Yeah.
Jedis. This is
Yes.
very reminiscent to me of that. Where
Absolutely.
you've got the one guy, literally one,
Yes.
walking in
Yes.
and killing all of the people that could threaten his power.
There are a lot of parallels between, I think, Stranger Things and Star Wars, with the light and the dark,
Yeah.
choosing
Yep.
the light path over the dark path. You have all this power, and what are you going to do with it? And which one which one is more powerful too, right?
Right.
Like, which one wins out? And yeah, so good. And I mean, that's such a central theme, and I think a lot of classic stories, but
Yes.
absolutely, I see the parallels with Star Wars very much here. And I don't know if like I've heard the Duffer Brothers talk about that specifically, but they must at some point.
I mean, I don't know. I think you're right though. Just the light versus the dark is that's not exclusive to Star Wars. That is a universal literary trope that is throughout all storytelling. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I love how Henry is also saying, he's describing it as everyone is just performing in a play day after day, and he cannot bear to be a part of it. He can't pretend. So instead, he tapped into these powers and took control of the clock and made his own rules. He became the predator. And he, just like the spider, because that's why he really related to the spiders. He said they are the apex predator of their own world, right? The Black Widow in particular. And so he first practiced then on killing animals. I mean, this is like horrific to even watch, even though it's all CGI.
It's all CGI.
Like, no animals were harmed
in
the kill. But then we also, I love throughout all of this though, where Henry is telling Eleven this story in the Rainbow Room in her memory, but you also see Nancy is watching all of this play out. So while Vecna has her in his grasp, he's showing her this is my life.
Which is very interesting because Henry is telling Eleven this story but it's being told through recordings from the past in one spot,
Yes.
and yet
Yes.
Vecna is showing it to Nancy, and
Yes.
they're happening at the same time, but these events are not necessarily
No, I don't.
connected.
Yeah, I don't. So
there's definitely a
I
weird
think
time connection here with that.
so. We're not actually. I don't think what's happening to 11 is necessarily like in actual time,
Yes.
like happening at the
I
same time
agree.
as Nancy. We're just seeing it as
It's just being
viewers play out
overlaid that way.
way.
Yeah, I 100%
Yeah,
agree.
exactly. Yeah. And as we know, this is 11's memory, so that she's recalling. So he had told her all this before, but she just wiped it from her memory. So she did not recall this. But I also think what's interesting here is Henry sure tries to explain himself a whole lot to people, even though he doesn't want to be constrained by the clock. He doesn't want to be a slave to society. He wants people to understand.
He doesn't
him.
want to be
So
the
there
villain.
is still he doesn't want to be the villain, and he wants to be understood.
Yeah.
Just as people do, just as you see on the dark side in Star Wars. I mean, everyone still, you have that layer of humanity where people want to be understood and you want to connect. So even though he is now, because he's been also alone, as we learn in the Upside Down. So he's trying to explain himself to Nancy here, and how he learned when he was torturing and killing animals, he could actually connect with their memories. So he then started torturing his own parents. And his dad thought it was a demon in their house, but his mom knew the truth. She knew that it was Henry. So you get that moment at the dinner table again that we've already seen play out, but now we understand that it was Henry that actually killed his mother because she knew the truth about him. So we see her flying up into the ceiling, all of her limbs snap again, and we see his dad getting arrested for everything. So Henry is telling Elle how then he woke up one day in the care of Dr. Martin Brenner, and Papa realized he couldn't control him, so he wanted to recreate his powers in the other children that were in this lab. So, Eric, that also comes into question, as we talk about Dr. Brenner being good, bad, like where he is on the spectrum. It's like, what were his initial intentions from the beginning? Like,
I would argue
here?
that any scientist at this level, I don't want to say they're like out to make a name for themselves, because I don't think that's true. I don't think they really care about their name being like put out there as much as their discovery is something that changes the landscape of human history. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think when he
Yes.
realized that this existed, it became like his life's work to do something with it.
It's also interesting to me. It's like we don't really know. There's this gap in this timeline where Henry just wakes up in Dr. Brenner's care. Like, what had he been up to? Because we knew he had all these crazy powers. What had he been up to from the timeline where he passed out in his parents' house when he woke up with Dr. Brenner? Was he like in some other facility where he started like hurting everyone?
I would imagine that there is no
happened?
timeline, that he passed out. He could not be left with his mother. She was now dead. The father was now in prison. So he was in a hospital. And when he woke...
This was back in what year was this? I guess this would have been in like the 60s?
Oh, something like that.
Probably. Like 20... Yeah,
but he would have...
Or the early 70s. Either way, I'm just thinking of like, obviously, mental health. I mean, this wasn't really a thing at all.
No.
Even in the 80s, it wasn't a thing. So it's... But
the boy is the only one alive. So
they're just
would
like,
bring
just
him
give him to this scientist?
No, I don't think he was a scientist. I think he was just a doctor. And then...
Like, do you think he adopted Henry?
I think adopt is a pretty strong word. I think
Well,
he just...
yeah, that's what I'm just wondering, how he came into having this child.
I think he was just placed...
Experiment on.
Placed in the hospital. And Dr. Brenner was the one who was in charge of his care. And then realized what he was dealing with and then launched his own thing.
See.
That's how I took it. Like...
Okay, so Dr. Brenner maybe has a side job at a children's hospital.
Well, no, like, I think that was probably what he was starting at. Like, he's a doctor. I think that's how he started. And then when this stumbled into his life, it was a hard pivot, and it became more of a scientist at that point.
Yes. Well, then we're back in Eleven's memory in the Rainbow Room, where she is face to face with Henry, and she's upset, and she's saying, "You tricked me," but he's trying to convince her that she's better than this and that she's been a prisoner, and he wants to remake the world together with her. But she refuses this proposition and strikes him away and knocks him down onto the ground. And he is very upset now. He's realizing, this is not going to go as planned. She's not interested in what I'm trying to do here. So, and Elle and Henry are then toe to toe, and they are, using their forces toward each other, basically like throwing out both of their hands, using their energy the best that they can. But he is able to take control of 11, and he has her in the air. You see her hands and her feet start to twist like he's trying to snap them, just as he did with his mom and everybody else. And she starts bleeding from her eyes and screaming. And then we have this moment where the screen goes black. And Elle, then we see her memories where she is somehow remembering her own birth, it seems. And we're hearing her mother telling her, "Jane, I love you." And Elle is then latching on to that love. So this is where we see that like fight between the darkness and the lightness really come into play here, because she uses that love and light and is able to channel that energy. So unlike what Henry said, where he was saying, dig deep down into your worst memories where someone hurt you and someone betrayed you and use that as your power, 11 now in this moment is holding on to the love that she remembered from her mother and holding on to that. And that is when she blasts Henry off of her. And we see the machines in real time too start to flip out when she's inside Nina.
Well, and I feel like this was noteworthy because even 2 seasons ago, when we had that episode with Callie, right? She is talking about using the negative energy.
That's right.
And trying to dig down deep for those feelings. And that's how 11 is like moving trains and things like that. And yet this is now the moment where we realize she used positive energy and it was more powerful. And so remembering that is helpful.
Yes, right. That's a great point. So it's like she's tapping into her memory, and now she is also tapping into what she learned here, which she had forgotten.
Right.
So it's like, and this is where also, that is what Papa was trying to tell her the entire time.
Yeah, but you can't just tell somebody that. They have to like learn it.
No, you have to just experience it. Right. So, and remember, she is just a tiny kid at this point. So this traumatic event, she's latching on to what people are trying to give her as advice. She's hearing all different things. She doesn't know what's going on. She's grown up in a lab. I mean, the girl doesn't have much lived experience.
No.
So luckily, I don't know how she's remembering going through the birth canal. That was kind of a funny scene.
That was weird.
Where we just see this red, and then you see her mom's face. It kind of reminded me of like, Look Who's Talking.
Yes. Yeah, that's not a bad reference. I like that.
Where you're seeing like the baby's perspective. I'm like, okay, this is weird, but we'll roll with
Yeah,
it.
we move. We
Um,
move.
yeah, and but yeah, she uses that energy and she blasts him off, and Henry is then held up. He goes through where like that double-sided glass was, through and against that wall, and that is where she just blasts a hole of light through his chest, and the light is just, it creates this hole in the wall, and this is what blasts him into the other portal. And you're seeing all these particles, and those are the particles that we've become very familiar with in the Upside Down. And you have this moment too where you see him against the wall, where you can see like the beginning of what looks like Vecna too,
Mm.
because then you have this great moment where Henry is flying then through the Upside Down. He's losing his flesh, and he is then becoming Vecna. And then they zoom in on one of his wrists where Vecna is now, and you see 001 on his wrist. And that's where the episode ends.
Awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
I remember watching this episode for the first time. And when like I feel like the orderly is Henry is Vecna reveal is so good. And I feel like even still, I mean on the rewatch I obviously know that this is the case. But on the first time through, I don't think I was connecting all those dots so easily. Even
Right.
like
No.
even at the end when Nancy is talking, like being led through, and Vecna is leading it through, I still was like, wait a minute, how is this all gonna tie? And when you see it all break down, it's kind of like, oh my,
Mhm.
like this is where this is. I think when
Yeah.
when she's starting to realize that Vecna's telling the story of Henry, and Henry is also telling the story to 11, that's when you start going, this is all the same person. And otherwise, up until this point, I don't think I had that connection.
No.
I thought these were
No,
two
and it was
separate
tough.
things.
I agreed. No, I don't think we were meant to know that the little boy was the same guy as the orderly.
No, because they don't
and that
look
was the same as
anything
Vecna.
alike.
No, and it's they
And you didn't
they meant to keep those
and you didn't
those
know that
stories
the orderly
separate.
was one. Like
No,
why would that be
no,
the case? And then
right.
it's when it's all being told that you're putting it all together going, "Oh my god. Like this is where
Yes,
this
and I
is."
love that through that point we were just seeing things through Eleven's eyes, through her perspective, and we only knew what she knew,
Yeah.
which was pretty cool.
And now we get the idea
Yeah.
that 11 potentially created the Vecna that we see because she
did, right.
she put him
I
through
mean,
it.
So it's like she was manipulated by one to free him.
Yep.
Right? Like he was talking about, hey, I want you to be free. But really, he knew that he could manipulate this in a way
Absolutely.
where he could convince her to take that chip out of his neck, because he kept talking about freedom and how Papa was controlling him or controlling her rather. But then when he showed her, hey, I have this pesky thing in my neck that they're tracking me by, he let her come to that conclusion of, oh, I'll take that out.
Yeah.
Because now, guess what? She's going to think this is my fault. This is all her fault. But no, she's just a tiny kid, and this has all been manipulated by Henry. And oh man.
So I have to follow up with this question here.
Yeah.
We see 11 blast Henry through the wall, and this gate opens, and he's now through this whole thing. Right? And then at the beginning of, like in season 1, we realize 11 opened the first gate through the tank, like screaming. Remember that?
Yes.
Well, which one of these gates is the first gate?
Yeah, it's fair because it's almost like if we're going by
Or
what the boys said earlier, where every time someone dies, it's creating
or
a,
or was this
a
gate opened and then that room, like the rainbow room, is where that bigger room was built, and so they had cemented over it and she fractured it, and then it opened the same gate back again.
yes, I like
You
that.
like that one?
Yes, let's go with that.
Okay.
Let's go with that. Yeah,
Because
yeah, I like that
I'm
because
trying to come up with a
yeah,
way that that's the case, and I think that's my best example. If you have a better
you mean
story, I want to hear it.
where the rainbow room is now where the Hawkins lab was, where that gate was formed,
Yes, like they
and they
cemented
had the
over
yeah.
that gate, and then when Elle was in the tank and screamed because she touched the Demogorgon on the tightrope, right?
Yep.
Then the whole cement wall like shattered down and this gate was formed. Well, the gate wasn't formed. The
And
gate had already
so
been formed. It was just behind this wall.
right, like it almost is implying that when 11, so actually when she screamed and she thought that's what opened the gate, because remember, Eric, all of these memories were repressed,
Right?
right?
Yeah.
So she didn't know that she had already opened a gate, right? So when she screamed that time out of anger, that actually just reopened a gate that was already there.
So then
Like she
is this gate opened on the day that Will went missing?
So I'm thinking
Hmm?
that
Huh?
yeah, it's a great question.
There are some things here that I'd like to iron out. I'm not sure how to do that.
When Will went, I think all of that was due to I'm thinking in my mind that what happened with Vecna, where he was thrown out into the upside down, they tried to patch that gate up. But then when 11 screamed out of being so upset that day, she reopened that gate, and then that's when stuff went down with Will. Because that's where things got frozen in time.
I would agree
too.
with that. But then my bigger point is, if they found the date as the day that the first gate was opened, that it shouldn't have been the day that Will went missing. It should have been the day that this happened.
Yeah. And how much time was in between those
That
things?
is a good question, because I don't know. It doesn't have to be much.
I
To
don't
be
think
honest.
there wasn't much time. So it could actually be argued that, yeah, like, was that only within a matter of like days?
It could have only been a couple of days or maybe a week.
Although if we're saying that the whole Hawkins lab was constructed around that room, though, that's a lot more time.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So there could have been at least a month's worth of time, but then all they would have had to have done for storyline purposes is put the date a month back.
Yeah.
You could have just made it a year earlier or whatever. Now,
right.
It wouldn't have had the impact of knowing, hey, time got frozen the day Will got taken. Or maybe I'm missing something. But this...
Yeah, guys, if anyone's listening and we are missing like a very specific
is this not a gate?
Here,
it certainly felt like a gate opening up.
You would think it would be, right? Like, that's the only other explanation is, are we saying that she was able to push him through and then that didn't form a gate? Like, maybe because she created it through love and...
Oh, boy, now we're really getting into it. Positive
that it
gates?
did not create a gate where the evil could come out. I mean, really, like, is that a thing? Whereas then the other one, she was pissed and created it out of anger, and then that created the evil gate, where then all the Demogorgons
I don't hate
through.
this.
I don't know.
I don't hate this. I don't hate that reasoning. It's very possible.
It seems kind of strange. Yeah, I can see it. But so, oh man. But Eric, did you have any other thoughts on? I mean, I love the fact that we saw Nancy in the pool again, and I'm not remembering how Nancy gets out of the upside down here, but I'm very excited for where that's.
But I will say I agree with you. Like the way that this episode ended, it felt like it could have been a season 4 cliffhanger end right there. But I'm glad we got 2 more episodes to go, so we'll see how it goes. All right, now we're going to jump into our IMDb segment of this podcast where we talk about our ratings versus your ratings as we find them on IMDb, not to mention our favorite and least favorite characters. Remember, this is Season 4, Chapter 7, Episode 7, The Massacre at Hawkins' Lab. Okay. I think on our Friends podcast, I went first, so I'm going to let you go first here.
On this one? Okay. So
yeah, I've got mine picked out. I'm ready to go.
Oh, wow, Eric. I'm impressed.
I know. Usually I'm like slacking. I'm at the end, trying to figure it out at the buzzer, but I'm good. I'm ready to go.
So I loved Eddie in this episode. So Eddie is my favorite here. He knew the SOS, which kind of pulled it out of left field. So I appreciated that. I loved his banter with Steve and him just being vulnerable as a guy. And remember, Eddie is older than all of them too. He's tried to graduate, I think, a few times, and he hasn't. So I feel like
they kept saying this, like, this is your year, man. Like, no, it's not.
Yes.
Like,
so Eddie, I just really liked his conversation. I thought it was really funny comments that he was also making about Dustin. Like, hey, yeah, you'd think he would oh, now I'm forgetting. I have it written down earlier, but yeah, it was like he was just commenting.
What about the jealousy of
no
having Steve be that one?
No, it was like his attitude when they were using the light bright, and he was like, yeah, you'd think he would get that in check a little bit, because Dustin was like flipping out about finding them at the trailer and how to meet up with them. And it was just cute moments. Liked a lot of his lines. Even though, he wasn't a fan of Steve in the past, he now has his back, and he's just immediately part of their group now. Like, he's just part of the team, and he's all about the teamwork. He calls it like he sees it, about what he sees between Steve and Nancy too, and I just appreciated that. So I just really liked Eddie in this episode.
I will say that I think Eddie is such a great character to add because he's totally different. Right?
Yes.
The same way that adding Robin last season
for sure
was a fantastic add to the gang. Adding Eddie is a great add. Like, love his insight. He brings something different to the table. And the idea that he continues to be like afraid, even though he has this persona of being this like creepy, like over the top, like guy, he's actually, when the monsters come for real, running as fast as humanly possible, which I think is very cool to kind of do that.
And what he said Dustin's tone could use some work. It was just this.
Oh, he did say that. He did. He's like, it's his tone, right? Yeah. And you're like, yeah, it is. That being said, I'll tell you what about Dustin's tone. Love it.
Yes.
And so much so, he's my favorite character in this episode.
He was honestly, he was in the running. Yeah, Dustin's great.
I feel like I've been waiting for I love Dustin, and I feel like he finishes like second and third on my list a lot.
Yeah.
And so here we are. This is a Dustin episode as far as I'm concerned. Although I will say this, and I feel like in our Friends podcast, I say this often. It was incredibly difficult to pick a least favorite character.
Absolutely.
I loved all of them.
Me too.
Every single one of them. There was no one that I disliked. And maybe it's because Mike wasn't involved. I don't know. But
low blow.
Like,
yeah.
It is a low blow, but listen,
it's true.
Jonathan, Will, and Mike were not in this episode, and I didn't miss them at all.
I was going to say, did you pick one of them?
For a beat. Yeah. I could have, but I didn't. I did pick someone who featured in this episode, and I will tell you my least favorite character I went with is Robin, and it is literally for the whole, like, rabies thing, but that's in her character.
Yeah, yeah.
That is what, like,
yeah,
she's new to the Upside Down. Like, she doesn't get it. She didn't have anything that she did that was overwhelmingly positive, other than reminding Nancy that they had bikes.
Mm-hmm.
So there wasn't anything that she did that was incredibly helpful, but she acted much more nervous than I think even we see her act historically. But again, it's her first time in the Upside Down, so wouldn't she act nervous? I think she would.
Yeah, yeah, and I can relate
but again,
yeah.
I mean, who's your
Well,
least? Let's put it that way.
before I was just gonna say about Robin, it's like, yeah, I could see that. That's almost why I picked Robin in our last podcast, if you remember, because I'm like, she was kind of spiraling in the car about like, oh my god, what are we gonna tell Eddie? And they're like, guys, we're not gonna tell.
That's her character trait.
And
that's what she does.
I feel like I can relate to this because sometimes when I'm really worried about something, I just need to like verbalize it. So it's like, okay, sometimes that doesn't help. Like, let's calm down. Like, but sometimes you just put it out there. It's like, okay, just had to say all that out loud. Now I'm done. But yeah, I can understand how that would not always be great. And let's just calm down. So my least, Eric, I agree. It was really tough to pick someone. So I picked Max only because she literally wasn't really featured in this episode. Like, we saw her being taken by the cops to be questioned, but again, we didn't see any of that. And so, you know, I could have, like, there was
I'm trying not to hold that against characters. When I'm picking my least favorite,
really didn't see anything
but
like positive
from,
like, she didn't really contribute to this episode. So that's really the only reason why I went with her. Like, I was sort of annoyed by a couple of the things that Erica said, but it's really funny, and that's just her character. And honestly, then she popped the cop's tire, so I could not go with her as my least because that was a baller move.
No. And I will say I considered Henry, but at the same time, I'm not going to, because the character development was so good that it's like the best thing that happens in the episode. It's, you know, just because it's a negative thing for the rest of the group doesn't mean it's a bad thing to see in the episode. I think my next one would have been Joyce. Like, just panic pushing buttons and hoping for the best.
But she did open that door, though. I know. I thought of that too, but she got that door open.
She got the door open.
Oh my god. Thank God. Thank God Joyce just went nuts on that thing, because honestly, what was the alternative, right? Other than hitting every single button on that panel. But Eric, what was your rating for this?
Okay, so here we are with ratings, right? I'm going to tell you right now, it's high.
Oh, yeah.
My top rated episode at this point is Dear Billy, season 4. It's the one where Max was like levitated up at the gravesite. I gave that a 9.3. I'm just going to be honest. I think this is my favorite episode in the entire series. I'm giving it a 10.
That's awesome.
I
fully support that.
I don't think I'm going to have another one beat it. And I haven't given a lot of high 9s. I have a feeling I'm going to. No.
Yeah.
Scratch that. I will be giving some more 9s here for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this might be my favorite episode. Between Hopper's fight with the Demogorgon, the Upside Down kids fighting the bats off, the light bright, Dustin's like jokes and stuff, with the humor of it all, the way that Dustin laid out the entire plan, Nancy being shown the whole Henry like breakdown. We see 11 learn everything that went down at the lab. All of it. It was cover to cover. It was an hour and 41 minutes.
Yeah.
It felt so much faster than that because it was just blow for blow, nonstop. You couldn't take your eyes off.
And it was such a satisfying, because it all came together too. That's why we're almost saying it could have almost been the season finale, because of how it got buttoned up like that at the end. Although we still do know, we know that we need to figure out what happened to Nancy. But just the way that we saw what happened with Henry's story, it was great. This episode, Eric,
I will say, I wrote down originally 9.5.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, this is my favorite episode. Let's go with the highest rating. And then I'm like, you know what? No, like, this is my favorite one. Like, I think the Henry reveal is my favorite thing that happens in Stranger Things. All of them, even looking forward. So I'm giving it a 10.
I gave this one a 9.8.
I don't hate that.
Because
obviously.
it just was my gut instinct. And let me look back through my ratings. I think this is also my highest rated episode so
It
far.
probably is.
And actually, I was reading up on this, and apparently, as of the end of November 2025, this is the highest rated episode of the entire series so far. This episode won 2 Emmy Awards for Outstanding Sound Mixing for a comedy or drama series, and Outstanding Sound Editing for a comedy or drama series. So specifically for 1 hour. I guess they must break that Emmy out into shorter series and longer. But yeah, and what was also interesting is, as of this episode, there's officially no character who has appeared in all of the episodes. Mike was the only character who appeared in all of them up until this point.
I was going to say, had to be Mike.
Yes.
That they took it, because it was noteworthy that Mike was not in this episode.
Mhm.
I felt like.
Me too.
But I will say, when you look at season 4 as a whole, I always felt like it was the Hopper in Russia stuff that slowed it down. On the rewatch, it's the California Boys side that slows down the episodes. Like, everything else have felt really engaged with. And so let me just put this out there. You gave it a 9.8. I gave it a 10. You just said this was the highest rated episode based on
just ratings.
What?
It just said ratings. I don't know.
Based on ratings?
Yeah, it did.
Question mark?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know where the ratings were
IMDb.
from. Yeah.
The IMDb ratings that we stack up against, this is the highest rated episode so far. I'll leave it at that. I don't know where I don't look at them going forward. So I'm just looking at it going back. Dear Billy, 4 episodes ago, which I just mentioned, that was the highest rated before. It was a 9.5. This one is a 9.6.
Yeah. Yep. That makes sense.
I mean, season 4 is a banger.
Wow.
It's just great.
Wow. Yeah. This episode, incredible. The season has been so much fun. I am so excited to talk about the last 2 episodes. There is going to be a lot that goes down. And then, Eric, even though you and I watched season 5 like in real time not too long ago, I'm excited to watch it like with all of this in context, like more recent memory, like rolling right into it. It's a lot more fun. So.
I am too, and I know there's a lot of during the rollout, there were a lot of very emotional people about how things were portrayed or events that happened, and I think having watched it all cover to cover like we've done,
yes.
I'll be very interested in how I take some of the events that transpire.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
we'll just see what happens.
Yeah, I think,
but we've got 2 more episodes of season 4 to go. I'm looking forward to it.
I know. Yeah, the next one is Papa, and then we have.
That's all it says. Is just Papa.
Yes. Oh
yeah.
Man.
Here we go. Well, thank you so much for listening to the We Run on Reruns podcast. Please check us out on our socials, our Instagram, and our YouTube channel. Subscribe, follow, share those links. We really appreciate all the support we're seeing there. Don't forget, you can find full episodes of our podcast on WeRunOnReruns.com, not to mention on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your other favorite podcast players. For Amanda, this is Eric. Enjoy watching episode 8 of season 4, Papa, for next week. Happy rerunning, everybody.
See you later, guys.